If I followed you around for one day and recorded every word you said to yourself, every thought you had about your appearance, your mistakes, your worth, and then I played that recording back to you as if it were someone talking to your child, your partner, your best friend, you would be horrified. You would call it abuse. You would demand it stop immediately. But when it's your voice talking to you, you call it normal. Today that changes. Right now, as you're listening to these words, there's a conversation happening inside your head, a conversation that never stops, a conversation that shapes everything you do, everything you feel, and everything you become. The question isn't whether you're talking to yourself. You are. You always are. The question is, what are you saying? Listen for a moment. Really listen. What voice do you hear when you make a mistake? When you look in the mirror? When you fail at something important? If that voice belonged to another person speaking to someone you loved, would you allow it? Here's what most people don't understand. The relationship you have with yourself is the foundation of every other relationship in your life. It's the lens through which you see the world. It's the filter through which every experience passes. And for most of us, that relationship is broken. We've become our own worst enemy, our harshest critic, our most unforgiving judge. But it doesn't have to be this way. Imagine for a moment that you could change that voice. Imagine if the person living inside your head was actually on your side. Imagine if every thought, every internal conversation came from a place of love instead of judgment. Your life would transform overnight. This isn't positive thinking. This isn't pretending everything is fine when it's not. This is something far more profound. This is about fundamentally changing the most important relationship you'll ever have. The relationship with yourself. Let me ask you something. When your best friend comes to you with a problem, what do? You listen without judgment. You offer support. You help them see their situation clearly, but with compassion. You remind them of their strengths. You believe in them even when they don't believe in themselves. You become their anchor in the storm. But when you face a problem, when you make a mistake, when you feel lost or confused, what happens? The voice in your head becomes a prosecutor in a courtroom where you're already guilty. It reviews every failure, every weakness, every reason why you're not good enough. It tells you stories about who you are and what you deserve that would make you cry if you heard them being told to someone else. This voice didn't appear overnight. It's been trained over years, decades even. Every critical comment from childhood, every moment of shame or embarrassment, every time you were told you weren't enough. Layer by layer, these experiences built an internal critic that's now running your life. And here's the most dangerous part. You think this voice is protecting you. You believe that by being hard on yourself, you're motivating yourself, that criticism leads to improvement, that harsh self-judgment prevents future mistakes. But ask yourself this, has being cruel to yourself ever made you happier? Has self-criticism ever led to lasting change? Has beating yourself up ever made you stronger? The answer is no. It never has, and it never will. Self-criticism doesn't motivate. It paralyzes. It doesn't inspire growth. It creates fear. It doesn't prevent mistakes. It creates anxiety that makes mistakes more likely. When you're constantly under attack from your own thoughts, your nervous system lives in a state of chronic stress. Your creativity shuts down. Your confidence erodes. Your relationships suffer because you project your internal relationship with yourself onto everyone around you. If you can't treat yourself with kindness, how can you truly be kind to others? If you don't believe you're worthy of love, how can you accept love from anyone else? If you're constantly fighting a war inside your own head, how can you find peace in the world? The tragic irony is that the voice that promises to make you better is actually keeping you small. The inner critic that claims to protect you is your greatest enemy. But here's what I want you to understand. That voice isn't you. Those thoughts aren't who you are. They're patterns you learned, habits you developed, programs running in the background of your mind. And just like any habit, they can be changed. You have a choice in every moment. When that familiar voice of criticism starts up, you can choose to listen or you can choose to respond differently. You can choose to become your own best friend. Think about what that would mean. Your best friend knows your flaws but loves you anyway. They see your potential even when you can't. They're honest with you, but never cruel. They support your dreams even when they seem impossible. They stand by you in your darkest moments and celebrate with you in your brightest ones. What if you could be that person for yourself? What if instead of waking up to a voice that reminds you of everything wrong with your life, you woke up to a voice that's genuinely glad you're here? What if instead of going to sleep replaying every mistake you made that day, you went to sleep with gratitude for the lessons you learned and excitement for tomorrow's possibilities? This isn't about becoming delusional or ignoring real problems. Your best friend doesn't lie to you about your situation. They help you see it clearly, but through eyes of love rather than judgment. It's when you make a mistake, a best friend doesn't say, "You're so stupid." They say, "That didn't work out, but you'll figure it out." You always do. When you're struggling, they don't say you're weak. They say, "This is hard, but you're stronger than you know." When you're scared, they don't say, "You'll probably fail." They say, "I believe in you, and whatever happens, I'll be here." This shift in internal dialogue isn't just about feeling better, though you will feel better. It's about accessing parts of yourself that criticism has kept locked away. When you feel safe with yourself, you take more risks. When you trust yourself, you make better decisions. When you love yourself, you attract love from others. The relationship you have with yourself becomes the template for every other relationship in your life. But changing this relationship requires something most people resist: radical honesty about how you currently treat yourself. For the next week, I want you to pay attention to your inner voice. Really listen to it. Notice what it says when you look in the mirror, when you make a mistake, when you're trying something new. Would you talk to your best friend that way? Would you allow anyone else to talk to someone you love that way? Most of you will be shocked by what you discover. The cruelty you accept from yourself would horrify you if it came from someone else. This awareness is the first step toward change. The second step is making a conscious choice to respond differently. When you catch yourself in self-criticism, pause. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what would I say to my best friend in this situation? Then say that to yourself instead. At first, this will feel foreign, unnatural. Your mind might resist telling you that you don't deserve kindness, that you need to be hard on yourself to improve. This resistance is normal. You're breaking patterns that have been with you for years. Your mind will try to pull you back to what's familiar, even if what's familiar is painful. But persistence changes everything. Each time you choose compassion over criticism, you're rewiring your brain. You're creating new neural pathways. You're teaching yourself a new way to be. And here's what happens when you truly become your own best friend. Your entire world changes. Problems that once seemed overwhelming become challenges you can handle. Setbacks that once crushed you become opportunities to grow. Fear that once paralyzed you becomes excitement about what's possible. You stop needing constant validation from others because you're getting it from the most important person in your life, yourself. You stop comparing yourself to others because you're too busy celebrating your own journey. You stop settling for less than you deserve because you finally understand your worth. But this transformation requires daily practice. Every morning, you have a choice. You can wake up and let that old critical voice set the tone for your day, or you can consciously choose to be your own advocate, your own supporter, your own friend. Every moment of self-doubt, you have a choice. You can spiral into familiar patterns of self-attack, or you can step back and ask, what do I need to hear right now? What would help me through this? Every mistake, every failure, every disappointment becomes an opportunity to practice this new relationship with yourself. Instead of "I'm so stupid," try "I'm learning." Instead of "I always mess up," try "I'm human." And humans make mistakes. Instead of "I'll never be good enough," try "I'm exactly where I need to be in my journey." These aren't just words. They're acts of revolution against a system that taught you to be your own enemy. They're declarations that you refuse to accept cruelty as a path to growth. They're choices to align with love instead of fear. And when you make these choices consistently, something miraculous happens. The voice in your head begins to change. Not just what it says, but its entire quality. Instead of harsh and demanding, it becomes gentle and encouraging. Instead of focusing on what's wrong, it notices what's working. Instead of predicting failure, it sees possibility. You begin to experience what it's like to have someone in your corner 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Someone who knows you better than anyone else and loves you completely. That someone is you. This is what self-love actually means. Not narcissism or self-indulgence, but the simple act of treating yourself with the same kindness you'd show a good friend. It's refusing to be cruel to yourself in the name of improvement. It's choosing support over criticism, understanding over judgment, patience over frustration. It's recognizing that you're the only person who will be with you for your entire life, and deciding to make that relationship a good one. When you truly understand this, everything changes. Your confidence grows not from external achievement, but from internal acceptance. Your peace comes not from having everything figured out, but from trusting yourself to handle whatever comes. Your happiness stops depending on perfect circumstances and starts flowing from the simple joy of being alive and being you. This isn't about becoming perfect. This isn't about never having problems or challenges. This is about facing whatever life brings with a loving ally instead of a harsh critic by your side. Imagine walking through your day knowing that no matter what happens, you'll be kind to yourself. No matter what mistake you make, you'll respond with understanding. No matter what challenge you face, you'll have your own support. This is what becomes possible when you choose to talk to yourself like you're your own best friend. The transformation starts now, with the next thought you think, with the next word you say to yourself, with the next choice between criticism and compassion. Your relationship with yourself is the foundation of your entire life. Everything else is built on this relationship. Make it a good one. Choose kindness. Choose understanding. Choose love. Choose to be the friend to yourself that you've always needed. Because here's the truth that will change everything. You already have everything you need for a beautiful life. You just need to stop fighting yourself long enough to see it. The voice in your head right now has the power to be your greatest enemy or your greatest ally. The choice is yours. What will you choose? Your life is waiting for your answer. But let me share with you what this journey really looks like. Because transformation isn't just about the destination. It's about understanding the path. When you first start treating yourself like your own best friend, you'll notice something strange. Resistance. Your mind will fight you. It will tell you this is silly, naive, that you're being soft on yourself, that real growth comes from being tough, demanding, unforgiving. This resistance isn't your enemy. It's actually proof that you're doing something powerful. You're disrupting patterns that have been running your life for decades. Your inner critic has been your survival mechanism. It developed to protect you from rejection, from failure, from the pain of not being enough. In its twisted way, it thinks it's keeping you safe. But what once protected you is now imprisoning you. Think about it this way. Imagine you hired a bodyguard years ago during a dangerous time in your life. This bodyguard was hypervigilant, suspicious of everyone, ready to attack at the first sign of threat. Now imagine that dangerous time is over. But the bodyguard doesn't know how to stop. They're still attacking people who want to be your friends. They're still seeing threats where none exist. They're protecting you from the very love and connection you desperately need. This is what your inner critic has become, a protector who no longer knows how to protect. A guard who's guarding you from your own life. The process of changing this relationship with yourself isn't comfortable. Growth never island. You'll have moments where you slip back into old patterns. You'll make a mistake and immediately hear that familiar, harsh voice. You'll look in the mirror and feel that wave of criticism wash over you. This is normal, expected, part of the process. The difference is how you respond to these moments. Instead of criticizing yourself for criticizing yourself, which is what most people do, you can notice what happened with curiosity instead of judgment. Oh, there's that old pattern again. That's interesting. I wonder what triggered it. This simple shift from judgment to curiosity changes everything. You're no longer at war with yourself. You're a scientist studying your own mind with compassion and fascination. Let me tell you about someone I know who transformed their relationship with themselves. For 43 years, they woke up every morning to a voice that told them all the ways they weren't enough. Not smart enough for their job, not attractive enough for love, not talented enough for their dreams, not strong enough for their challenges. This voice was so constant, so familiar, that they thought it was just who they were. They thought everyone lived with this kind of internal commentary. The turning point came during a conversation with a friend who was going through a difficult time. As they listened to their friend's self-criticism, they felt their heart break. "You would never talk to me that way," they said to their friend. "So why do you talk to yourself that way?" And in that moment, they realized they were guilty of the same crime against themselves. That night, they made a decision. They would spend 1 week paying attention to their inner voice. really listening to it, writing down what it said. What they discovered horrified them. The voice in their head was crueler than any bully they'd ever encountered, more vicious than any enemy they'd ever faced, more unforgiving than any judge they'd ever stood before. But unlike external critics, this voice had access to their deepest fears, their most painful memories, their most vulnerable moments. It used this intimate knowledge as weapons against them. The second week, they began an experiment. Every time they caught the critical voice, they would pause and ask, what would I say to my best friend in this situation? Then they would say those words to themselves instead. The resistance was immediate and intense. Their mind told them they were being ridiculous, self-indulgent, weak, but they persisted. Week by week, month by month, something began to shift. The harsh voice didn't disappear overnight, but its grip began to loosen. New neural pathways started forming. Different thoughts became possible. After 6 months, they realized something extraordinary had happened. They actually liked spending time with themselves. The constant background noise of self-criticism had been replaced by something they'd never experienced before, inner peace. They stopped dreading quiet moments because quiet moments were no longer filled with attacks on their character. They stopped seeking constant validation from others because they were getting validation from the most important source, themselves. They started taking risks they'd been too afraid to take because failure was no longer a reason for self-destruction. Their relationships improved because they stopped projecting their inner turmoil onto everyone around them. Their work improved because their creativity was no longer stifled by the fear of making mistakes. Their health improved because they were no longer living in a constant state of internal stress. This is what becomes possible when you choose to be your own friend instead of your own enemy. But here's what's crucial to understand. This isn't about positive thinking or affirmations or pretending problems don't exist. Your best friend doesn't lie to you. They tell you the truth. But they tell you the truth from a place of love, not cruelty. If you need to lose weight, your best friend doesn't call you fat and disgusting. They say, I'm concerned about your health. How can I support you in taking care of yourself? If you're in a bad relationship, your best friend doesn't say you're stupid for staying. They say you deserve love that lifts you up. What would help you see your worth? If you fail at something important, your best friend doesn't say you're a failure. They say, this is disappointing, but it doesn't define you. What can we learn from this? This is the voice you can develop within yourself. Not a voice that ignores reality, but one that sees reality through the lens of love instead of judgment. The practice is simple, but it's not easy. It requires conscious choice, moment by moment, day by day. It requires you to become aware of patterns you've been unconscious of for decades. It requires you to choose love over fear, even when fear feels safer. It requires you to believe that you're worthy of kindness, especially from yourself. And here's something most people don't realize. The way you treat yourself teaches others how to treat you. When you accept cruelty from yourself, you signal to the world that cruelty is acceptable. When you treat yourself with disrespect, you attract disrespectful treatment from others. But when you model self-compassion, you give others permission to be compassionate too. When you speak to yourself with kindness, you create space for kindness in all your relationships. You become a living example of what healthy self-relationship looks like. This ripples out into every area of your life. Your children learn how to treat themselves by watching how you treat yourself. Your friends feel safer being vulnerable because you've created an atmosphere of acceptance. Your colleagues respect you more because you respect yourself. The transformation you make within yourself becomes a gift to everyone around you. But it starts with a single choice, the choice to stop being your own enemy. Right now, in this moment, you can make that choice. You can decide that you're tired of the war inside your head. You can choose to lay down your weapons against yourself and pick up the tools of friendship instead. What would those tools look like? Patience when you're learning something new, encouragement when you're facing a challenge, forgiveness when you make mistakes, celebration when you succeed, understanding when you're struggling, support when you're scared, belief when you doubt yourself, love when you feel unlovable. These aren't luxuries you have to earn. They're basic human needs that you can give yourself right now. The question isn't whether you deserve them. You do. Simply by being alive, by being human, by being you. The question is whether you'll choose to give them to yourself. Your relationship with yourself is the most important relationship you'll ever have. It's time to make it a beautiful one. But let me tell you something that might surprise you. The moment you begin treating yourself with genuine kindness, the world around you will test that decision. Life has a way of presenting you with exactly the situations that challenge your new commitment to yourself. You'll make a public mistake, you'll face rejection, you'll encounter failure in front of people whose opinions matter to you. And in those moments, that old familiar voice will whisper, "See, this self-love thing is nonsense. You need to be harder on yourself. You need to face reality." This is the crucial test. This is where most people abandon their journey back to themselves. But here's what I want you to understand. These moments aren't proof that self-compassion doesn't work. They're opportunities to prove that it does. When you're tested, when life presents you with reasons to be cruel to yourself, that's precisely when you need your own friendship the most. Your best friend doesn't abandon you when things get difficult. They show up even stronger. Imagine you're watching a child learning to ride a bicycle. They wobble, they fall. They scrape their knee. Do you scream at them? Do you tell them they're clumsy and stupid? Do you list all the reasons they'll never succeed? Of course not. You help them up, you dust, put them off. You remind them that everyone falls when they're learning. You encourage them to try again. You do this because you understand that learning requires failure. Growth requires mistakes. Success requires persistence through difficulty. But somehow, when it comes to your own life, you forget this basic truth. You expect perfection from yourself in situations where you'd show infinite patience to others. You demand immediate mastery of skills that take years to develop. You criticize yourself for being human in a world that requires you to be human to succeed. This double standard isn't just unfair, it's destructive. It creates an internal environment where growth becomes impossible because the fear of self-punishment overwhelms the possibility of learning. Think about the last time you tried something new, something that mattered to you, something that required you to step outside your comfort zone. What was the voice in your head saying? Was it encouraging you to explore, to experiment, to discover what was possible? Or was it warning you about all the ways you might fail, all the reasons you weren't qualified, all the people who might judge you? Most of us live our entire lives with a critic as our constant companion. We make major decisions based not on what we want to create, but on what we're afraid we'll be criticized for. We choose careers that feel safe rather than meaningful. We stay in relationships that feel familiar rather than fulfilling. We avoid opportunities that could transform our lives because we're afraid of the voice that will emerge if we don't succeed perfectly. This is no way to live. But here's the beautiful truth. You have the power to change this conversation right now. Not tomorrow, not when you feel more confident, not when your circumstances improve. Right now, the next time you face a challenge, instead of asking, "What if I fail?" try asking, "What if I succeed?" Instead of "I don't know what I'm doing," try "I'm figuring this out as I go." Instead of "I should have this handled by now," try "I'm learning, and that's exactly what I should be doing." These aren't just different words. They're different worlds. In one world, you're constantly defending yourself against attack. In the other, you're constantly discovering what's possible. In one world, mistakes are evidence of your inadequacy. In the other, they're data points in your learning process. In one world, you're fighting to prove you're not a failure. In the other, you're exploring what success might look like for you. Which world do you want to live in? The choice is always yours, in every moment, with every thought, through every response to whatever life presents. But making this choice consistently requires something most people never develop, a deep, unshakable trust in yourself. Not trust that you'll never make mistakes, not trust that you'll always know what to do, not trust that life will always go according to plan. Trust that whatever happens, you'll handle it with kindness toward yourself. Trust that you'll learn from your experiences without destroying yourself in the process. Trust that your worth isn't determined by your performance, your achievements, or other people's opinions. This trust isn't something you can think your way into. It's something you build through action, through choosing compassion over criticism again and again until it becomes your natural response. Every time you mess up and respond with understanding instead of attack, you make a deposit in your self-trust account. Every time you face uncertainty and choose curiosity instead of panic, you strengthen your relationship with yourself. Every time you encounter difficulty and offer yourself support instead of blame, you prove that you can be trusted to be on your own side. This is how you become unshakable. Not by avoiding problems, but by knowing you'll treat yourself well while solving them. This is how you become fearless. Not by eliminating fear, but by knowing you'll be kind to yourself even when you're afraid. This is how you become free. Not by controlling your circumstances, but by freeing yourself from the tyranny of self-judgment. And here's what happens when you reach this place of genuine self-friendship. You stop needing the world to be different for you to be okay. You can face rejection without collapsing because your sense of worth doesn't depend on external approval. You can encounter failure without being destroyed because you know failure is information, not identity. You can be criticized without being crushed because you're no longer looking to others to tell you who you are. This doesn't mean you become indifferent to outcomes or immune to disappointment. It means you have a stable foundation within yourself that can weather any storm. It means you have access to an inner strength that no external circumstance can take away. It means you finally understand what true confidence looks like. Not the absence of self-doubt, but the presence of self-compassion. The journey to this place begins with a simple recognition. You are already enough, exactly as you are right now. Not because you're perfect, not because you have it all figured out, not because you've achieved everything you want to achieve. You're enough because you're human, because you're trying, because you're here doing your best with what you know in this moment. This is the foundation of genuine self-love. Not self-improvement disguised as acceptance, but actual acceptance that creates space for natural growth. When you truly accept yourself, you stop forcing change and start allowing transformation. When you stop fighting who you are, you start discovering who you could become. When you stop being your own obstacle, you start becoming your own greatest asset. The conversation in your head right now has the power to change your life. Make it a conversation worth having. Because here's the truth that will set you free. You've been carrying the solution with you all along. You already know how to love, you already know how to be kind, you already know how to forgive and support and believe in someone. You do it for others every day. The only thing you need to learn is how to turn that same energy inward. You don't need new skills, you don't need more information, and you don't need to become someone different. You just need to extend to yourself the same grace you've been giving to everyone else. Right now, in this moment, you can make a decision that will echo through the rest of your life. You can decide that the war inside your head ends today. You can choose to become the person you've been waiting for someone else to be. You can stop looking for permission to love yourself and simply give yourself that permission. The voice in your head is about to respond to what I'm saying. Listen to it. Notice what it tells you about why this won't work for you, why you're different, why you need to be harder on yourself than others. And then, with infinite gentleness, thank that voice for trying to protect you and choose a different response. Choose to talk to yourself like you're your own best friend. Your life is waiting, but more than that, you are waiting. The real you. The you that exists beneath all the criticism and judgment and fear. That person has been patient. They've been waiting for you to remember who you really are. They're waiting for you to come home to yourself. The door is open, the welcome mat is out. All you have to do is walk through. The person who will walk with you through every triumph and every tragedy, every joy and every sorrow, every success and every failure for the rest of your life is you. Make that person someone worth walking with. Talk to yourself like you're your own best friend, because the truth is, you're the only friend you're guaranteed to have forever.